when it comes to Ricky, it begins sort of from the rarely seen point of view of someone who's just got out of jail, or prison rather, but as it begins to follow the usual recidivism storyline, then it becomes way too familiar and it kind of takes away from where it was heading. So to summarize the movie, Ricky just got out after 15 years and now he's on parole for another year. And as with most people who just got out on parole, life isn't easy. Ricky went in when he was 15 years old. Now he's around, or if not 30 exactly. And life moved on without him. Technology has changed, people have grown up, and Ricky being expected to just acclimate, get a job, and, deal is hard for him. When he went inside, because of what happened with his father, he was the man of the house. He was trying to make money to take care, or at least help his mom take care of the household and the little brother, but now he can barely get a job because of a background check. And on top of that, he has to go to anger management. His little brother is cool with him, but he's not really trying to be that village that Ricky needs to support him. And it's a lot. Add in the fact that Ricky is kind of challenged by trying to make friends, maybe catch up in terms of dating, and there's just a lot going on to the point where it's almost like he's having a second coming of age, if not trying to jumpstart where he was when he was 15 and deal with the fact that where he was when he was out last is conflicting with the 15 years he was inside and what he learned, and trying to reconcile the two only gets more and more difficult as the movie goes on. So get into the review section. Perhaps the biggest notable highlight is that when you look at Ricky, it's a person who's in a 30-year-old body, but kind of is in a 15-year-old mindset. For with Ricky, yes, he might have spent 30 years on this earth, but I feel like with him spending more conscionable time in prison than he did outside, because what would Ricky remember from when he was 4 or 5 years old, there's this imbalance there, and you can see the challenge of him going from an institutionalized state where people are telling what to do and everything to him having all the freedom. And while Ricky has no desire or need to go buck wild, you see being thrusted into adult situations and moments is kind of mind-boggling to him. Perhaps the best example of this is there's a character named Cheryl who's in the same anger management class as him, who takes to him, and she pursues being intimate with Ricky, and the way it looks is not two 30-something-year-old people going to the pathway of having sex. It very much looks like she is a grown-ass woman trying to have sex with a teenage boy who is kind of lost, confused, maybe somewhat interested, but at the same time feeling like they're not ready, but they can't say that because, they're supposed to come off as a man. And you can see a lot of internal conflicts kind of go back and forth in the way that Ricky looks at her and the way he seems to be in that situation. And in many ways, in that vulnerable moment, you see kind of who Ricky is. He is somebody who's 15 trying to masquerade as a 30-year-old because that's what he's expected to do. And as shown by his parole officer, played by Cheryl Lee Ralph, that's who he's expected to be, and he's not going to get necessarily the kind of grace that he may need to really play catch up. And in some ways, it's kind of the heartbreaking piece of the film, especially in the early part of it, until the film decides to go from trying to show Ricky trying to reconcile a 15-year-old mindset with a 30-year-old body to pretty much going down that usual path of showing his life going to hell. So getting to the on the fence portion, the main issue when it comes to Ricky is, one, once this film seems to no longer be committed to trying to reconcile Ricky's age going into the age he is now, and it focuses more on him stumbling and eventually kind of really screwing up. And then when you add in the fact that while it's clear that he needs a village to build himself up, but we don't get to know that village much, that's when things kind of go awry. For me, Ricky is a type of character who's in itself not that interesting. It's more so the story that he can go on. So with that in mind, if there's going to be a story-focused, world-focused type of movie, it needs to fill this with interesting characters. And while I will say when it comes to Sheryl Lee Ralph's character named Joanne, she's interesting because it's Sheryl Lee Ralph. But everybody else doesn't have that same star power or presence or even history to really make you latch on to them like Sheryl Lee Ralph has. So with that, as you watch and things go from interesting kind of different take on getting out of prison and what that life is to feel like you're just watching any urban drama, which you know is going to eventually lead to the worst case scenario happening, Ricky could easily lose you to the point of no longer being interested in watching and maybe to a certain point feeling like you could have spent your time better. Hence why overall we feel a bit mixed about Ricky, to the point where I don't want to say outright that it ended up being a disappointment, but I do think that there's a lot when it comes to Ricky that kind of peaked early on when it came to the film, and once it no longer was really trying to dive deep into Ricky and the perspective of somebody like his, and instead it just focused on the drama that he can be in because of his past, it loses its main hook and eventually it could lose your attention.